I'm Kathleen Yoshinaga, and we are excited to be here to give you an insight as to what Hawaii Floriculture and Nursery Association does. Our mission statement is A, enhance its members' business success through an enactment of laws to advance the common business interests of its members, education, marketing, research, and services. B, to encourage and promote the betterment of conditions that will create and sustain an economically viable flowers and plant industry. And C, to promote the growing and exporting of Hawaii flowers and plants. Here are some of the things we do. We provide over 300 members statewide with current info on entomology and research with our partnership with CTAR. We offer very attractive rates with FedEx. We also work closely with Department of Agriculture and others who grants us the opportunity to provide webinars. We keep up with legislative bills in order to inform our members. We provide educational webinars to promote more sales by our members too. We have various forms of memberships, and while some members may not be an actual farmer or in floriculture, one can still be a member if you support our mission. Our board members include President Eric Tanoy, Greenpoint Nursery, Vice President Chad Matsushima, Alluvian Nursery, Secretary Charlie Boswick, Pacific Transplant, Treasurer Ken Ogawa, Nutrient Ag Solutions, Recording Secretary and Grant Administrator Judy Schilling. We have 9 directors, which include Kekoa Ayu, Rainbow Packaging, Elton Mao, Orchid Plantation, Josh McClung, Big Island Plant Works, Ed Reyes, Kauai Nursery and Landscaping, Tong Ten Neo, Vantage Nursery, Gordon Inoy, Puna Flower Power Co-op, John Gordines, Tropical Flower Express, Warren Watanabe, Maui County Farm Bureau, and myself, Kathleen Yoshinaga, Kathleen Enterprises. Today's lineup presenters are Eric Tanoy, Greenpoint Nursery, secondly, followed by Dr. Tessin Amore, University of Hawaii, third, Josh McClung, Big Island Plant Works, and Sue Tabal Yamaguchi, Subi Expression. So let's start with Eric. Eric, did you start?
No. Sorry, I forgot to unmute myself.
Okay, go ahead.
And I'm gonna share my screen right now. Okay.
Share.
Okay, so far so good. Okay, so thank you, Kathleen. So aloha kako. Hello, everyone. First of all, I want to say mahalo nui loa to the members of Garden Club of Honolulu for inviting us to share our story with you this morning. My name's Eric Tanoe, and I am a second-generation flower farmer from Hilo on the Big Island of Hawaii. I am the president of Greenpoint Nurseries, which was founded by my dad, Harold Tanoe. We have 2 sons, our older 2, Chris and John, that have joined us, representing our 3rd generation in our family business. I am also the president of Hawaii Floriculture and Nursery Association, or what we refer to as HFNA, and have been since its inception in 2008. I was asked to share the history of HFNA with you this morning, but let me start by sharing how our industry took root in the island. In 1889, a son of missionaries and a prominent businessman and politician, Samuel Damon, brought the first anthurium plants to the Hawaii Islands from London to adorn his family's estate in Honolulu. He was known as a generous man, and we suspect he gifted anthurium plants to his gardeners. This was during the sugar plantation era, and soon anthuriums were blooming in the front yards of many plantation homes. Enterprising people would go to these camps to purchase these flowers for resale, and thus a cottage industry was born. Now, let's fast forward to 1948, where a small group of flower shop owners would come together to form the Hilo Florist and Shippers Association. They would later join forces with growers and shippers who were shipping flowers to Honolulu as well as to the mainland to form the Hilo Florist and Shippers Association. The growers and shippers, looking for ways to grow and help build the export market, worked together, funding the University of Hawaii's research and development. This helped to optimize quality and production of crops. HFSA also began working with the USDA, United States Department of Agriculture, and the State Department of Agriculture to help growers meet government shipping standards. One of HFSA's major accomplishments came when the association joined forces with other business organizations and local government to lobby for the extension of the Hilo Airport runway to accommodate trans-Pacific flights. This success allowed export business to blossom in the 1960s and 70s. Another high point was procuring a shipping agreement with, at that time called Federal Express, which we refer to as FedEx now, in 1991, allowing for more logistic options out of Hawaii. At that point, the Hilo Florists and Shippers Association evolved into a statewide organization then called Hawaii Florists and Shippers Association. Being statewide gave more leverage on government policies and the ability to secure more federal grants and help fund initiatives in floriculture research. We've been helping fund research and development at the University of Hawaii, College of Tropical Agriculture and Human Resources, what we refer to as CTAR now, for over half a century. We also established a scholarship endowment to help grow young people in the field of horticulture. In 2003, I had the opportunity to serve as HFSA's president. And 5 years later, in 2008, HFSA grew to form the now Hawaii Floriculture and Nursery Association, HFNA, which is an umbrella organization for floriculture that also includes the potted plant industry. This helped us to better negotiate shipping rates and to be more successful in getting grants. I want to share with you a few of my thoughts on the industry and how I envision HEFNA helping and help our industry. So I want to dial it back a little bit to the year 2007 when our industry hit its peak in terms of revenue. But as we all know, markets took a turn for the worst. At that point, our supermarkets or big box stores were carrying flowers and with some supermarkets providing florist services. It became a race to the bottom, and in terms of price, we as boutique growers knew we couldn't compete in that market environment. So, in walks Hitomi Gilliam, AIFD, an international renowned designer from Vancouver, Canada. In early 2007, I attended a demonstration she gave at Floradeck, a local floral supply store or warehouse in Honolulu. Her floral designs were stunning and innovative, and she showed she was a charismatic presenter and educator. I knew then our industry needed to work and learn from her. To survive, we needed to shift to top designers who service the high-end events and weddings. Hitomi was that person who could help us make that shift. So on September 22nd, 2007, We partnered with Hitomi and with Macy's at Shopping Center, their flagship store in Hawaii. Hitomi put on two floral demonstrations that she coined Neo Tropica. Some of you may still remember those demos. We had a morning demo for general public and an afternoon demo for advanced designers, and both sold out. On the following day, we partnered with internationally renowned chef Alan Wong on a food and wine event called A Feast for the Senses. It was a celebration of his 8th anniversary of Pineapple Room restaurant located at that Macy's in Ala Moana. Those designs Hitomi created in those demos, along with designs created by Lois Hiranaga, AIFD, and Deb DiBella, AIFD, would grace the room for another sold out event. Chef Allen went as far as flying in his friend and renowned pastry chef Stanton Ho for the event. Chef Stanton created beautiful and creative sugar and chocolate sculptures inspired by Hitomi's floral designs that added visual drama to the pastry tables. We took event design work to the next level by collaborating with top chefs. Tropical flowers had the perception of not being the ideal flowers for weddings because of their bold shapes and colors. We needed to break that old perception
I don't think
of
they're going to do
our
second
flowers in the hands of innovative designers who
round.
create new and exciting wedding designs from bouquets.
They're doing something else. Flowers.
In December of 2011, we put on a wedding bouquet workshop with the media outreach to bring more awareness to what we believe. We worked with Maui floral designer Lois Hiranaga, AIFD. Lois has had has creating has been creating fabulous bouquets with 100% tropical flowers for some of her destination wedding brides. She has worked with brides from across the US, mainland, Europe, and Australia who would request tropical flowers for their bouquets. We were fortunate to have star advertiser writer Nadine Cam do a feature article on Lois's wedding bouquets from that workshop. Hawaii is one of the most romantic places on earth, one of the top destinations for weddings. Some of you who are old enough may remember singer Andy Williams, who recorded the Hawaiian wedding song that went to number 11 on the Billboard Hot 100. And the song has a beautiful hula that is still performed at weddings today. You can still find a couple of those hula performances on YouTube. A bride and groom can vicariously transport their guests to the islands with a Hawaiian themed wedding held anywhere in the world. Having Hawaii's beautiful flowers can help make that happen. We continue to promote our flowers and foliage for weddings. And with the help of Hitomi in our annual celebrations events, and because of the pandemic, we are utilizing social media and virtual webinars to educate and inspire designers to think about tropical flowers for weddings. Hitomi also created and innovated Tropical Nouveau design concept utilizing temperate flowers with tropicals to help soften their look. Designers have been applying the concept, and we are seeing it more and more on social media today. We've also been attending and sponsoring events at the annual AIFD symposiums for over 10 years to promote Hawaii's flowers and foliage and plants for larger events. I want to close with a wedding bouquet workshop we did back in August 2016. We brought research scientist Tracy Dr. Tracy Matsumoto Brower and Dr. John Suzuki from the Pacific Basin Agricultural Research Center, PBARC, and the professor researcher flower breeder, Dr. Tessie Amore and Joanne Lichty from CITAR, together with Hitomi Gilliam and Lois Hironaga. For the researchers, and especially for a breeder like Tessie, that firsthand experience allowed them to gain valuable insight on what top designers are looking for in flowers. It can take up to 14 years to develop a new variety or cultivar, and we want it to be market ready and wow the designers from day one. We have watched Tessie blossom since that workshop. She has a keen artistic eye for design and has become an accomplished designer in her own right. She is studying Ikebana, and she has created beautiful contemporary floral designs for her church. Tessie represents the best of both worlds, the art and science of flowers. And when you teach a teacher, or professor in Tessie's case, you are impacting her students for years and years to come. The pandemic has been devastating on many fronts, and we all know the healing power of flowers. So it is all up to us, from researchers to growers to floral designers, to all who love flowers, to work together to keep our industry vibrant for generations to come. Mahalo nui loa, and thank you very much.
Thank you, Derek. And next, we'd like to bring up Dr. Tessie Amore, University of Hawaii. Tessie?
Let me get my slideshow going.
Ah,
Can you see it now? Just double check.
yes.
Here we go. Hey, good morning. Thank you, Eric, for your kind words. And thank you, Garden Club of Honolulu, for giving us this opportunity to share with you our modest contributions to the Hawaii floriculture and nursery industry. I'm currently an assistant researcher at the University of Hawaii and owe much of my training to Dr. Haruyuki Kamemoto, often referred to as the father of Hawaiian floriculture. When I visit him, he often refers to me as one of his bookends because I am his last student. Eric mentioned the art and science of breeding. HFNA and our grower cooperators have been valuable partners in our research program. I'd like to spend a few minutes on the science of developing a new anthurium variety, and later how art, floral design to be exact, has become an important aspect of our research program. Developing a new variety requires quite a bit of patience. And in fact, Eric has mentioned that it takes about 14 years from pollination. The two main phases of variety development are hybridization, which takes about 2.5 years, and the lengthier selection and evaluation phase that takes about 10 to 12 years. This phase includes field testing because our field test phase takes about roughly the same time as the crop cycle growers use in the field. And here we see our varieties on the top, Tropic Sunrise, and on the bottom, Kauai. The Garden Club of Honolulu members are familiar with growing anthuriums from seed. In fact, this exhibit from the 2012 Garden Club Flower Show at the then Honolulu Art Academy, now known as the Honolulu Museum of Art, won first place. Although anthuriums have natural pollinators, and you can see on the top left, a gecko or ants, as a breeder, we select parents for breeding with a goal in mind, such as color, flower shape, yield, or disease resistance. We take pollen from the male parent and with our fingers transfer the pollen to the receptive stigma. In a few weeks, wart-like structures indicate fruits are starting to form. In about 6 months, The berries are ready to germinate. Once the berries germinate, we nurture the seedlings and move them along to larger sized pots until the seedlings start to flower 2.5 to 3 years from germination. We make individual seedling selections based on the flower attributes. The flower, namely the spathe, which is a modified leaf in reality. So we look at spathe color, gloss, carriage, and shape. Spathes with margins curled under, such as the one you see on top, are rejected because spathes with curled margins eventually crack when packed. Once we select a particular seedling, we look to prepare to clone, that is, increase numbers via tissue culture for testing with grower cooperators. We also index for a bacterial disease caused by Xanthomonas axonopodis, Pathovar dieffenbachii. That's what the XAD means on the top right. We produce anywhere from 200 to 1,000 plantlets to test with cooperators, depending on the selection's potential for commercial cropping. Large numbers for field testing are needed so that each cooperator site has adequate numbers of plants to observe the plant performance over time. As we continue, so what we do is we get these young leaves, put it into culture, sterilize them, and then you see shoots developing on the plates, and then these are the young shoots on the bottom. And then as the shoots grow, we then send them off for further multiplication. The rate of shoot development differs. On the left, we have a slower growing selection with few shoots, and on the right, we have numerous shoots. So there are differences between selections. Shoots about 1/4 to 1/2 inch are cut, transferred into boxes with a gelled medium for rooting, and then shipped out for our cooperators to grow out. We then enter our next phase called advanced testing or field trials. The individual seedling that was cloned is now put to test. Cooperators grow the small plantlets that you saw here, and they'll take it out and grow them out as a commercial crop. We seek feedback from the cooperators with respect to pest and disease occurrence, field performance, particularly with the spathe. Does it bruise? Does it crack? Is the color consistent over time? Are the growth habits ideal? Are the stems crooked once in a while? And that's why it's crossed over. Any crooked stems, if there's quite a number of them, they tend to be rejected. So we also ask growers to see if packing is difficult. And yield in the field and post-production rejection rates are also noted. Advanced testing takes place over multiple locations. We visit the growers annually, well, at least before COVID, to see for ourselves how the selections perform in the field. Growers also test shipments to see how well they handle post-production. Does the product ship easily? Is it packed easily? Is the product acceptable to some of their consumers? In recent years, cooperators provided us with feedback if their customers like the selection, thus testing for market acceptability. As we do field testing, my colleague on the Big Island, Joanne Lichty Imamura, conducts vase life experiments. A vase life of 21 days is desirable. So based on the recommendations from the growers, after about 10 to 12 years with them, the selection is then named and released. Some of our varieties have become commercially successful, others not quite. Eric shared how the local industry pivoted to include working with floral designers in 2007. A few years later, We were introduced to expert designers Hitomi Gilliam and Lois Hiranaga, so us researchers can understand what the designers need. I tell you, we struggled with our designs because we had very little knowledge of techniques, but at least we learned that stem length was very important for hand-tied bouquets. So that was one point that was driven to us. We need longer stems. After the HFNA workshop, I became interested in learning more about the principles and elements of floral design, including techniques and mechanics. I didn't have to venture far. The Garden Club of Honolulu, together with Lion Arboretum, offered a 4-week basic floral design class in the spring of 2017. I was able to learn design using some of the anthuriums that I was familiar with. Here we have Tropic Ice and Anuenue, which I have worked with in the greenhouse, hybridizing and cloning. I continued to take more classes with the Garden Club in the fall. In one of my classes, I learned to manipulate anthurium stems to create a more curved line. When we were doing this design, I realized the importance of stem pliability. As a breeder, I didn't know that stem pliability was important to design. As a first-time attendee at the 2017 AIFD Symposium held in Seattle, I experienced a whole new world of floral design. Instead of looking at anthurium by the flower by itself, as I would in the greenhouse or in cooperators' farms or in packing houses, I learned to appreciate the role of our Hawaiian-grown tropical flowers, the role of synergy in design, how our tropicals blend together with the temperates in the Tropic Nouveau style, emphasized to me as a breeder how I have to look at other flowers, whether it's colors and textures, so that our tropical flowers can be versatile to mix with other floral products. I took more lessons to learn Western flower design and Sogetsu Ikebana. As we developed relationships with floral designers and participated in the HFNA wedding workshops, we started to seek the designer's feedback as early as the seedling selection phase. We sent photos of the flower and asked designers what they thought of our selection. And they would comment on the color, spathe shape, flower conformation, and even the spadic size and color. If the feedback was positive, we would proceed to increase the single seedling for field testing. By doing so, by receiving the designer's feedback, we want to develop varieties that are not only desired by growers, but also by the designers. The designer's input helped us prioritize what we should push in the breeding pipeline. In 2019, HFNA sponsored wedding workshops on the 4 islands featuring guest designers. We were indeed fortunate to have them visit twice in our greenhouses in June and September. We hosted them and they had a field day looking at our selections. We learned from each other as they pointed out selections they thought were interesting. Some of the ones they liked were already in the testing phase, but there were some that were not even cloned yet. By identifying selections of interest, we can focus on cloning the selections they think are useful so that we can bring them to the growers to test. At the wedding workshop in Hilo, we saw how designers used one of our selections, UH2245 in various designs, thus showing the design utility of our new selections. A case in point is Maui Bride, which was designated UH2282 during evaluation. On the right, you see all the desirable characteristics which satisfy the growers. Even when the selection was being tested with growers, our cooperators sent them out for testing as well. Here is UH2282, still unnamed, in a design exhibited at the 2012 Garden Club of Honolulu Flower Show, designed by Melissa Lewis and Dottie Nita. I'm sorry, I meant 2015, not 2012. We named eventually the selection Maui Bride, since Maui is a popular destination for weddings. Lois Hiranaga, the designer of this bridal bouquet, is based on Maui. At the 2020 Wedding Celebrations webinar, Maui Bride was used considerably for bouquets, showing us how useful this variety can be. In fact, Dottie Yadao on the upper right used the two forms of Maui Bride, the single space and the cup and saucer form. A second variety that has a backstory to it is Kapoho Velo, formerly known as UH1991. As you can see, it has all the design, the attributes the growers want on the right-hand side of the screen. At AIFD in Seattle in 2017, UH1991 was used. Here's a close-up of the design. And when a breeder sees a design using the particular selection, in this case, UH1991, together with other flowers, we see how this variety has a potential to combine well with other flowers. In Wedding Celebrations 2020, Brenna Kwan used Kapoho Velo in various table arrangements. Eric earlier mentioned in his talk that HFNA has partnered with various sectors of the floriculture industry so that together we can keep our industry moving forward. Our work is made possible with all the contributors who have collectively supported our breeding program. Your floriculture industry participants, researchers, growers, and designers have continued to work together with the financial support of federal, state, and industry funds to keep our industry going for years to come and living up to the challenges of production peaks or lows, whether the economy is thriving or struggling, or even during a pandemic. Thank you very much for giving me the opportunity to share our story.
Thank you, Tessie. That was wonderful. And next, let's move on to Josh McClung, Big Island Plant Works. Josh?
Hello.
Hi.
How are you, Kathleen? Thank you.
Good.
Okay. I'm going to attempt to share my screen here with y'all. Okay, give me one moment. Okay. All right, the modern world, excuse me. Okay. Are we all good to go here? Everybody can see my shared screen? First of all, I would like to take a second to thank you for having me today, for allowing me to present my story. The fact that I'm speaking with you all today is really proof that dreams can become a reality. And this actually has become my dream where we're at now. So it's truly my honor to be speaking with you. When Judy first asked me if I'd be interested in telling my story of how I went from an interior plantscaper in Southern California to a Dracaena farmer on the Big Island, I thought, Well, finally, I get to talk about a topic that I have a deep understanding of and a real passion for, myself. So there might be a lot of pictures of me, which makes it kind of weird. So here's my presentation. All kidding aside, I really do have a passion for flowers and feel extremely blessed to be able to be here with you to share that passion. So my name is Joshua McClung, and I'm the owner of Big Island Plant Works, which is formerly known as Hawaii Global Nursery Exporters. We're a family-owned small business that grows potted foliage on the east side of the Big Island of Hawaii. We have a location in Curtistown near Hilo, and we have 2 other fields on different parts of the Big Island where we grow our Dracaena mother stock. The plants that we grow are usually are grown mainly for the interior application, and we ship them all over the mainland. We export our plants to the West Coast market mainly by air containers that fly with UPS. And sometimes we do them in a 40-foot shipping container, depending on where their final destination is. One of our core principles as a company is to do our best to help establish a more robust agricultural sector that not only exports to other markets, but also helps to sustain the local folks as well through agriculture. So my story all started when I was about my son Scotty's age, 8 years old. We were living in Marin County, California back then, and my mom gave me a pussy willow cutting and told me that if we planted it in the ground, it would grow into a big old tree. So we planted it and we waited, and sure enough, that tree grew into a big tree one day. But my dad, who was so mad that we blocked his favorite view, he cut it down. And I understood, but it broke my heart. But it started my passion for plants. I mentioned the story because after that one experience, I never really did anything plant related until much later in life, which is actually a shame. And I really wish, looking back, that someone, a teacher, a relative, anyone had told me I could be in agriculture as a career path. But no one pushed anyone into ag in my world at that time. It was the 1980s, and everyone was supposed to be either a lawyer or a doctor. And so I went to school and got a degree in television production. So it goes. It wasn't until about 2008, with all the twists and turns of the universe, when the economy bottomed out, and I was working as a finish carpenter in Santa Barbara, California. And in one day, 5 years of business disappeared, and along with it, our construction company. So I did what any California surfer would do. I went to the beach. It was great for about 3 weeks, and then not so much. Hard to pay rent on a non-professional surfer's salary. So luckily, a friend of mine called and said that there was an interior plant business that was booming despite the recession. And did I want a job as a plant technician? I said, heck yeah, I needed some work. I had no idea what a plant technician was or what they did. I had not really worked with a plant since my mom and I planted the pussy willow trees many years before. And I definitely hadn't taken care of an interior plant or any type of flower for that matter. And as it turns out, being a plant tech is a lot harder than I thought. I had to go into offices that I used to work in and take care of the plants. And I actually felt humiliated. I had to wear a little bag with scissors and a rag in it. I used to carry a tough guy construction tool belt and carry heavy loads of lumber around, showing off as construction guys like to do. But even though my fragile ego was bruised, I loved the job. I loved taking care of all the plants. I loved the way the plants made the people feel in the offices and the homes that we took care of. I loved the way the plants made the spaces look. And I just kept telling myself, the ends will justify the means. And it sure did. I also learned a lot along the way about how to care for interior plants. Through training many different plant techs and many failures and experiments, I found that one key element to care for any terrarium plant is consistency. It doesn't mean that you won't kill an interior plant by overwatering or bad lighting or any number of other factors or variables. But if you pick a semi-sunny area that is not directly under a heater or an air conditioner, and you give that plant the same amount of water every week, it will adjust to you and your watering, and it will thrive. The trick really is making sure that what you do is you do it the same time every week and the same amount. Also, here's a little tip that a plant guy would, this is breaking the credo here, but if you add a little bit of Super Thrive, if you've ever heard of Super Thrive, to your water, when you water it every week, it will give you that extra plant shine that the pros do. But remember, that's a secret, so don't share that with any of your plant guy friends. Okay. The passion that my mom planted in me had returned, and I felt that it was my calling in life. I know that sounds a bit cliche, my calling in life. Really, Josh, your calling in life? But here I am today, presenting to the prestigious Garden Club of Honolulu. So I guess really the proof is in the pudding. So my learning continued, and I apprenticed under somebody for 4 more years, under a great teacher, and we decided to go out on my own. This is my wife, who is not only beautiful, but she's brilliant. And she's standing right behind me, so I had to say that. So we started Ojai Plant Works. Ojai Plant Works is still an interior plantscape company that my old partner took over, and it takes care of residential and commercial buildings in the whole Southern California area. We would install beautiful orchid arrangements, trees, patio containers, and really anything in a pot. We also did a full exterior landscaping remodels, but only for a few exclusive clients. We had 2 kids, a dog, and a mortgage, so we hustled and we hustled and we hustled. And we started with 1 client, and we grew over 4 years to 75 clients. One interesting aspect of this career that I never knew existed before I went out on my own was that I had a real passion for restoring older historic properties and updating it through their plants and their flowers. Basically, we would go in and cut back what had been let go for a long time, replant everything, and really just bring the properties back to the original intention. It's really actually amazing when you start cutting things back, how easy it can be to blow my client's mind when all you were really doing was pruning something back. Once again, this is kind of another inside tip. So if you ever have an overgrown landscape and you want to restore it, first thing you need to do is just prune it back, and you'll find the original person's intention, planting intention, and usually you can just let it start back from there. But once again, don't tell any of your landscaper friends about that. Just prune it. One location I was lucky enough to be able to restore is a restaurant in Ojai called the Ranch House. It's a historic location where Beatrice Woods, who some of you might know, and a whole group of Hollywood stars would hang out and drink. One of the coolest parts was when I actually found different pieces of her art that had been covered by overgrown foliage. She was a potter, and she would make cement pieces and hide them in the garden with her actual handprints in them. And they were overgrown for 20 to 30 years until we had come in and found them again. And that was truly an honor. We also had the pleasure to save some of the roses that the Queen of England had given to Beatrice Woods, and she had planted herself. Her hands had touched the same plant that I was now loving, and this truly touched my soul. And then I went to a conference in Hawaii, and everything changed. The conference was hosted by HFNA, and I was at the Manalani Hotel here on the Big Island, and that's where I met a gentleman named Tom Martin. A mutual friend, Enrique, who is, by the way, one of the biggest and finest growers of interior plant foliage in the world, Cal Hawaii is his company, introduced me to Tom and said, would I like to buy his farm? And I said, great. Tom, Chris, his awesome wife, and I sat down and discussed some details, and all sounded great. but I thought there was no way this was ever really going to happen. Things like this don't happen to me. And I thought, and I left the island thinking, wouldn't that be nice? 2 weeks later, Tom texted me and said, when do you want the farm? Well, we couldn't figure out the details, so we did what any other brilliant man does. We asked our wives for help. Turns out that both Chris and Sharon, my wife, are realtors, and now we live next door to them in Waimea. It's really funny how life works out. So we, and when I say we, I mean Sharon, sold everything we had in California. We took our 2 kids, Riley the dog, and my dear mother who lives with us as well, and we all moved to the Big Island. Turns out it was the best move we ever made. There have been many, many, many challenges so far after 2 years of doing this, and I have found that farming is actually really hard. But the passion for the plants and the lifestyle completely outweighs any setbacks, and we keep honing our trade every day, and we're getting better and better. Amazingly, as it turns out, the market for interior potted foliage is going through a brand new revolution, just like what happened in the 1970s. Then there was a huge interior plant revolution brought on by the popularity of the philodendron in the 70s. And one of my biggest buyers from California, who was just here a couple weeks ago, lived through both trends and says that this one is actually bigger and more sustainable due to the fact that we have a generation of people, the millennials, which is the largest, who have been brought up staring at computer screens, and they long for nature. Now with COVID, the trend has gone ballistic because so many people have been stuck inside for so long. So that's my story, but I feel that my evolution is not yet complete, and that's where I really need your help. I like to think that maybe I was brought here for a reason, and I feel that the reason is to try to help the youth of today understand that they can find a passion for agriculture and that agriculture can be your career and a great way to make a living. I just think back to all the time between when my mom and I planted that pussy willow tree and when the economy forced me back into plants. If only someone in a school or a club or an after-school program had taught me something, anything about the love of growing plants, that I might have found my passion earlier, and maybe my career would have started much, much sooner. So I implore you all, please share your passion for plants and flowers with the youth. Get them involved. Get them involved in gardening at any level. We need to teach the next generation of farmers, or we will pay the price later on. Be the change. Mahalo.
Oh my gosh, that's wonderful, Josh. Thank you. Thank you, Josh McClung, Big Island Plant Works. And next, let's bring on Sue Tabal Yamaguchi, Sue V Expressions, designer extraordinaire. Sue?
Aloha, everyone. Let me share my screen. Okay. Aloha, mahalo to the members of the Garden Club of Honolulu and allowing me to talk to you today. My name is Sue Tabal Yamaguchi, AIFD, EMC, and I own and operate my business, Sue V Expressions. I originally opened as a gift shop in 1992, selling licensed and one-of-a-kind items, then decided to sell flowers after numerous customers asking if I sold flowers. That began my floral journey in 1994. I originally started as a self-taught designer and then took some classes from Phil Rulota, Renee Van Rams, and Hitomi Gilliam. I began doing weddings in 1995 for friends and family, and that started a passion that began my journey in weddings. I started doing about 20 weddings per year, then it grew to 40 to 75 per year. Before the pandemic hit, we would do 2 to 10 per week. Business then was very busy for us while raising all of my kids, running a gift shop and doing events, and even taking them with me on sites. I decided to close the retail side and concentrate on weddings and events. I took a leap of faith. With that, I had to decide what kind of clientele I wanted so that I could have time with my kids. Weddings were getting out of control and family life was almost non-existent. I am fortunate though that I had a shop where my kids was around and we became very close. Plus, I'm glad that they still like me. In April of 2013, I started the process to attain my personal goal to be part of the AIFD, the American Institute of Floral Design. I attained my AIFD recognition in 2015. Their mission is to advance the art of professional floral design through education, service, and leadership, to recognize the achievements of excellence in the art form. AIFD was established in 1965 and is the floral industry's leading nonprofit organization dedicated to establishing, maintaining, and recognizing the highest standards of professional floral designs. Every year before the pandemic, we would attend the symposium that consists of many main stage programs and workshops. There is only one way to become an accredited member of the American Institute of Floral Designs, and that is to participate in the professional floral design evaluation. You would take an online test, then a hands-on design evaluation at symposium. To maintain your AIFD status, you must accumulate 30 hours of continuing education and part of that in leadership every 5 years. To find out more information about AIFD, please visit aifd.org. Then after my AIFD, I started the process to attain my EMC, the European Master's Certificate, in 2016. EMC is an educational platform that exposes designers to the infinite, creative, taught by driven, engaged, and passionate team led by Thomas de Bruin. The EMC program shows its students how to look at flowers closely by discovering the differences in their personalities, emotions, and possibilities, learning to use them in the fullest variety of ways. I took my foundation class in San Francisco and then flew to Belgium to complete my certification in 2017. I am also on the core team of EMC as the EMC Go manager, which takes care of putting on symposiums, alumni, and manage our Conscious Creative Facebook page, where I do their floral challenges, support designers, and Tomas does live classes about 2 to 3 times per year for about a week at a time. And let me know if you would like more information on EMC or the Conscious Creative group. The year that the pandemic hit was supposed to be the year of a lifetime for me. I just returned from Colombia, visiting Alexandra Farms, where the most beautiful garden roses is produced, and also from Philadelphia, the Philadelphia show where I got to see the World Cup competition and assist Anya Norwood in her program. I then flew back home and did the wedding that was my dream, but it turned out to be the last wedding I did for the year. I was supposed to be traveling every other month. My son was competing in Junior Olympics. I was accepted to participate in First Ladies Luncheon in Washington, D.C., traveled to Belgium to put on symposium for EMC and participate in Floormore. Then we were shut down, all events on hold, and the future, didn't know what the future held for us. When the pandemic hit, I had to pivot and rethink what I had to do to survive and what I wanted to do to accomplish. It was a struggle at first, and the thought of closing my doors saddened me. I emptied my fridge, took a photo, and cried when no one was looking. I began to get into plants, growing Ceropegia woodii, peperonias, pothos, and more. And that kept me busy, as now plants are a hot item all over the world. But I had bigger opportunities that came my way. I was lucky to be helping Hawaii's industries open up for Mother's Day, and that gave me an outlet to create floral arrangements for individuals again. Business seems to be picking up a little. No events though, but sales of floral arrangements, leis, and memorial orders were flowing in. Mother's Day sales was 100% better than 2019, but that wasn't enough. Sales not only was the same during the rest of the year of the pandemic, but I also suffered 30 to 80% loss in 2020. Which brings us to the present day. I helped my industry rally to get weddings open up again for 100 people, including vendors, for outdoor weddings. We are now busy meeting with clients, talking over the phone, writing proposals, and having outdoor events safely again. We are still working on helping to open indoor weddings and hope to present our proposal to the government officials at the end of this week. I'm also teaching with the greatest inspiration, Hitomi Gilliam, in the Designers for Excellence virtual workshop series. It's a hands-on workshop with mentorship and a student's review session. The series started in March with Francois Weeks. She did Flowers to Wear, and that was incredible. Then it continues to Anya Norwood. They would be doing a fresh look in European-inspired bridal bouquets. Then it's followed by Brenna Kwan, and she and Hitomi will be looking at a fresh look in sympathy designs for celebration of life. Then I will be teaching Hitomi on Tropical Nouveau, traveling with flowers. You can find out more information on designforexcellence.com. I am also involved and a member of HFNA, the Hawaii Floriculture Nursery Association, with promoting Hawaiian grown flowers in weddings. We did our first webinar last year, and we plan to do another one this year, and we have a lot of things in store for you. Weddings in Hawaii brings a lot of revenue to the state. In 2019, a little over 99,000 people came to Oahu to get married, and that's according to the Visitors Annual Report in 2019. About 37,000 came for their honeymoon, and not only did they come to get married, but their family and friends came as well. Stayed at hotels on an average of 8 days. They rented cars, ate at our restaurants, bought souvenirs, and enjoyed our lush greens, gardens, and fragrant flowers. That resulted in sending flowers to their family and friends in the mainland so they could enjoy a piece of Hawaii. There is a uniqueness of flowers and foliages we have here on the islands, and that sets us apart from the rest of the world. The fragrance of the flowers and the lush landscape we have all around us sets apart, and that will always be what visitors will remember when they visit. It brings them great memories, happiness, and gratitude. Mahalo.
Wow, thank you, Sue. Are there any questions? There's any questions?
And we had one question earlier about, it was for Tessie, about what's the medium that the anthurium seeds were grown in?
We like
Tessie?
to do, thank you for the question. We like to do things simple. So you can use any medium you wish to prefer, you want to use. If you have something that's highly porous is used. But because we want to make things simple, we just use the fine orchid bark and nothing else. But the important thing is when you germinate anthurium seeds, don't bury them. They have to be above, on top of the medium.
Thank you. Are there any other questions? I don't see anything. Okay, so if not,
I think that means everybody did a great job.
okay, great. Okay, so I'll conclude this.
Everybody said inspiring. Thanks for having us. All presenters were amazing. Lots of great comments. So thank you. Yeah, you did a very good job. And I think there's people that want to share this with students that are, young and growing up. And So great job. Thank you.
Great. Thank you. And thank you. We'd like to thank the Garden Club for allowing us to be here today and all the presenters. Thank you. And Dottie Nita, thank you for introducing us. And also a short thank you to Tori Richard, Josh, and Lori Feldman for providing outfits for our last wedding webinar. Oh, and I need to mention a few more things. We have a Neotropica guide that we produced. It is a wonderful tropical floral and plant guide. You can get your personal copy at www.hawaiineotropica.com. And lastly, we want to invite you all to November 19th, 20th, 21st night this year, when our next wedding webinar debuts. So, oh, by the way, if you need to register for that, you can also go on our website, www.hawaiineotropica.com. Until then, aloha and mahalo.
Thank you.